Was it a betrayal whispered in shadowed corners, a clandestine meeting fueled by resentment, or simply a desperate flight from a life deemed unbearable? Let's dive into the tangled threads of a husband's despair, a wife's defiance, and the chilling scrutiny of a medieval Jewish community. The air in Pavia hung thick with the scent of roasted meats and spilled wine, a familiar comfort for Hakkym, the innkeeper. His days were a predictable rhythm of guests, deliveries, and the constant, low hum of his business. But beneath the surface of this ordered life, a storm was brewing, a tempest centered on the woman he loved or, perhaps, had grown to resent. It began subtly, a persistent questioning, a quiet withdrawal. "You've got to leave this business," she'd urged, her voice a constant, unwelcome refrain. Hakkym, a man of routine and quiet ambition, initially dismissed it as a passing phase, a woman's whim. He'd pushed her away, offered reassurances, and tried to bury himself deeper in the demands of his inn. But the words, like persistent rain, eroded his defenses, carving out a space for doubt and, eventually, a profound sense of loneliness. Then, the abrupt departure. A vanished wife, a stolen silver, and a frantic search that led Hakkym to the doorstep of a Gentile woman, a neighbor who'd previously mended his linens and laundered his clothes. The scene that unfolded within that darkened doorway was a tableau of unsettling intimacy. The auxiliary bishop, a figure of imposing authority, witnessed it all: the locked door, the hushed argument, the wife's defiant declaration of independence. "Another spirit has clothed your wife who wishes to change her religion," the bishop declared, his voice echoing with a chilling formality. It wasn't a religious conversion that was being discussed, but a far more unsettling accusation, a betrayal of vows, a violation of trust, a potential abandonment of faith. The two citizens, the chaplain and two Gentile women, a silent, watchful audience to a private drama that threatened to shatter Hakkym's world. He demanded a word with his wife, a desperate plea for understanding, a futile attempt to salvage a relationship that seemed irrevocably broken. "Why have you come here and why don't you return home?" he asked, his voice strained, his heart a leaden weight. Her response was a barbed arrow, a cutting dismissal. "I'm going to stay here and I don't want to be the mistress of a tavern." The words hung in the air, a stark indictment of his life, his business, his very existence. "You can't fool me again," she spat, her gaze unwavering, her defiance absolute. The details that followed were a litany of unsettling observations, a series of carefully constructed moments designed to paint a damning picture of her behavior. The auxiliary bishop, a keen observer, noted the way she rose from the couch, pulling on her trousers and belt. He saw the moist saliva glistening above the canopy, a subtle yet undeniable sign of intimacy. He witnessed the hesitant exchange between the two figures, the shared glances, the almost imperceptible brush of hands. And then the final devastating detail, the locked door, the deliberate concealment, the carefully orchestrated scene of clandestine connection. It was a performance of betrayal, a calculated act of defiance, a final severing of the ties that bound them together. The community reacted with swift and decisive action. The auxiliary bishop, acting as a judge and jury, declared her guilty, citing the signs of her transgression. The weight of their judgment settled upon Hakkym, a suffocating blanket of shame and despair. But the legal proceedings were only part of the story. The community's concern extended beyond the purely legal. They were wary of the potential for her to renounce her faith and embrace Christianity, a prospect that threatened the very fabric of their carefully constructed world. The legal proceedings were only part of the story. The community's concern extended beyond the purely legal. They were wary of the potential for her to renounce her faith and embrace Christianity, a prospect that threatened the very fabric of their carefully constructed world. The elders issued a decree, a set of stringent rules designed to prevent similar breaches of trust in the future. Wives were instructed to observe modesty, to separate themselves from their husbands during their periods, to avoid excessive displays of affection, and to abstain from frivolous conversation with strangers. The emphasis was on restraint, on control, on the preservation of the sanctity of marriage. And then, the chilling pronouncement: Hakkym was granted the right to dismiss her without a formal trial, without a warning, based solely on the evidence presented by the auxiliary bishop. It was a brutal acknowledgement of the damage that had been done, a tacit acceptance of her defiance. As Hakkym walked away from that darkened doorway, he carried with him the weight of his loss, the sting of his humiliation, and the unsettling realization that his world had been irrevocably altered. He was left to rebuild his life, to navigate the complex social landscape of a medieval Jewish community, and to grapple with the enduring question of whether love and loyalty could ever truly coexist with the constraints of tradition and the ever-present threat of scandal. But what exactly was the nature of that scandal? Was it merely a physical transgression, a violation of marital vows? Or was it something deeper, a rebellion against the rigid social structures that governed their lives, a desperate assertion of individual freedom in a world of unrelenting constraints? The details, as meticulously recorded by the auxiliary bishop, suggest a calculated performance, a carefully staged scene designed to convey a message of defiance. But did the wife truly intend to abandon her faith, or was she simply seeking to assert her independence, to reclaim control over her own life? And what role did the Gentile woman play in this drama? Was she a willing accomplice, a participant in the wife's rebellion, or merely a convenient confidant, a silent witness to a private affair? The story is shrouded in ambiguity, a tapestry of conflicting accounts and unspoken motivations. It is a reminder that even in the most rigidly defined societies, human emotions can run deep, and that the boundaries between love, loyalty, and betrayal can be perilously thin. Beyond the immediate drama, the story offers a glimpse into the social and cultural dynamics of medieval Jewish communities. The emphasis on modesty, on ritual purity, and on adherence to tradition reflects the deep-seated anxieties of a people living in a world of constant persecution and uncertainty. The sumptuary laws meticulously documented in other sources reveal a similar preoccupation with social control, a desire to maintain a clear distinction between the wealthy and the poor, the powerful and the powerless. The restrictions on dress, on food, and on behavior were not merely arbitrary rules. They were a means of reinforcing social hierarchies and preserving the integrity of the community. And the ethical wills, like the one penned by Eleazar of Mainz, reveal a profound concern for moral instruction, for the cultivation of virtue, and for the transmission of Jewish values to future generations. These documents were not simply legal instruments, they were expressions of a deep-seated belief in the importance of character and conduct. But what about the women in this story? They are largely relegated to the margins, their voices silenced, their motivations obscured. The wife is portrayed as a rebellious figure, a threat to the established order, while the Gentile woman is reduced to a mere prop in the drama. Yet beneath the surface of these narratives, there may lie a more complex and nuanced understanding of female agency. The wife's defiance, while undoubtedly disruptive, may also be seen as an assertion of her own desires, a rejection of a life that she found stifling and oppressive. And the Gentile woman, with her skills in sewing and laundering, may have occupied a position of considerable influence within the community, a conduit between the Jewish and Gentile worlds. Ultimately, the story of Hakkym and his wife is a microcosm of the challenges and contradictions of medieval Jewish life. It is a tale of love and loss, of betrayal and forgiveness, of tradition and rebellion. But perhaps most importantly, it is a reminder that even in the most rigidly defined societies, human emotions can run deep, and that the boundaries between love, loyalty, and betrayal can be perilously thin. Was it a simple case of infidelity, a momentary lapse in judgment, a tragic consequence of unmet desires? Or was it something more profound, a symptom of a deeper malaise, a reflection of the constraints and pressures that shaped the lives of those who lived in a world of constant uncertainty? And what legacy did this episode leave behind, not just for Hakkym and his wife, but for the community as a whole? Did it strengthen the bonds of loyalty and trust, or did it sow the seeds of discord and division? The answers, like the story itself, remain elusive, shrouded in the mists of time. But one thing is certain, The tale of Hakkym and his wife serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of human relationships, the enduring power of tradition, and the ever-present struggle to balance individual desires with the demands of social order. And finally, if you could step back in time and witness that pivotal moment in the darkened doorway, what would you truly see? Would you focus on the evidence of betrayal, or would you glimpse a flicker of defiance, a yearning for freedom, a desperate attempt to reclaim control over one's own destiny?